Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about 2 soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games that they come from without getting too bogged down in music theory. Up first this week for our 2 games is 2020's Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, Insomniac's tighter refinement of their popular superhero game, which introduced another web-slinger at the PlayStation 5 launch, in preparation for a full-fledged sequel.
Following that is the stand-filled, flashily dressed, deeply weird action of a fighting game based on one of the most influential manga to ever exist, 2013's JOJO'S Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle.
Oh, these games, their titles have it all. They have apostrophes, they have colons, and they have hyphens. It is the title trifecta.
It is the perfect pairing. I also brought up an alternative that I'm not going to explain, but franchises in which Spider-Man canonically appears.
Yes, the Peter Parker version of Spider-Man. We'll just leave that kind of floating in the wind. Joe, how are you doing? What are you playing?
I'm doing pretty all right. I've been mostly playing a lot of Holocure. I started Kingdom Hearts Dark Road because the offline update came out that added the last chapters. It is basically an idle game without being an idle game. I have it running right now, grinding for me, just sitting over on the side, playing itself.
Oh,
which is just a great thing I can say about any video game is, man, I sure love that this game plays itself. But otherwise, I played a little bit more of a Kingdom Hearts 2 randomizer and then my computer blue screened and I hadn't saved. So basically, did I actually? Other than that, I haven't really been playing a lot of video games, not gonna lie.
I have been playing a Pokemon game. Not sure if I'm allowed to disclose which Pokemon game I am playing. It's for a future project. But I am in that Victory Road grind, which is all too real. So that's fun. Otherwise, not too much from me either. It's a busy time with work coming up, so just kind of bracing for that, I think.
I'm about to make it a busy time in a couple months during October when I've decided, I'll just do 4 streams a week. That's fine. That'll work, right?
You should know better.
I should know better. That's not gonna stop me, apparently.
Let's get to some composer follow-up news. We've got some headlines from the video game industry from the last week or so, and it ties into some composers that we've talked about before on this show, so let's get to it. Rift of the Necrodancer has been announced. It appears to be a Rhythm Heaven-inspired game that features music from Danny Baranowski and friends. Of course, Danny Baranowski with work on games such as Super Meat Boy, which is when we brought him to the show and talked about him, but yes, he did work on the original Crypt of the Necrodancer. The release window is still TBA. It kind of has one of those wish list now sort of messages at the end of the trailer, which is just a strange sign of the times, I think.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know, I've never released a game on Steam, so I cannot tell you exactly how, but apparently wishlisting a game on Steam does actually help with, I guess, Steam's algorithm looks at how many times the game's been wishlisted in terms of deciding when to suggest it to people or something along those lines. I don't know the details, but yeah, wishlisting a game does help, weirdly enough. This game looks weird. It showed 3 minigames. One of them was clearly Rhythm Heaven.
For sure.
There was one that was Guitar Hero style, and then there was a Punch-Out one, which was kind of out of left field. So we'll see how that is. I mean, I think Brace Yourself Games makes some damn good games, so I'm looking forward to seeing how this turns out. In other news for other indie games, additional tracks from the Outer Wilds DLC expansion Echoes of the Eye, which I still have not played and I really got to get to it. It released in a deluxe edition of the DLC's soundtrack. Music once again by Andrew Prallo. I have not listened to it yet. I've heard that it is some of the best stuff on the soundtrack in general. That sounds great because that soundtrack is fantastic already. And I really, really do got to get to Echoes of the Eye at some point this year.
Not often that you see DLC for DLC essentially on the soundtrack front, so that's interesting. Sam Barlow made a new game that we apparently missed it being talked about. I think it was like the release date was covered on the PC Game Show, so take that for what you will. Of course, Sam Barlow worked on Her Story and Telling Lies, but definitely covered his work on Her Story on this show. And the game is called Immortality. It comes out today as of time of this episode release, and it is on Game Pass. So go check it out. Word is going around also about its soundtrack and how it's composed by the Emmy-nominated composer Nainita Desai. So that might be one to check out. I mean, Sam Barlow, great work. I think this game's about like an actress and you're pulling clips from like 3 of her movies, and there's a behind the scene. I think it's probably like a murder mystery involved too. A very Sam Barlow clip-based sort of game to unravel.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to giving it a shot. I should probably play Telling Lies first. It's been installed on my computer for a year.
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten to it. And lastly, Keighley's opening night live at Gamescom happened. It was possibly one of the worst shows of this type I've ever watched. It was bad. It was really bad. There were a couple of like highlights, like Liza P looks cool.
Yeah.
Literally, that's the only thing that comes to mind.
Dead Island 2 as a closer is shocking, and I don't know if it's necessarily in the best way. I personally did not find any enjoyment in the Justin Roiland game that's coming out. And just a very long, talkative demo that was just grating and didn't look all that fun.
I saw somebody describe it as, what if we made Borderlands more annoying? And that checks out. Like, what if Claptrap was your gun and he never shut up? And he was Morty.
I would rather be high on life not playing the game than playing the game high on life.
Oh.
Bam. No.
But it's gonna be on Game Pass.
Well, so is Liza P, and so I'd rather play that more. But I guess it was nominated for, best PlayStation game at Gamescom, so, whatever. Along with, what was it, the new Dark Pictures game, and...
One Piece Odyssey.
Yeah.
The One Piece RPG.
What a weird show in general. Not among Keighley's best, but I think not necessarily this week, but maybe even next week. Like, keep an eye on the possibility of a PlayStation showcase, the possibility of a Nintendo Direct. If anything is to be gleaned based on the last few years, it seems like those two events seem to hit kind of mid-September-ish. I know last year, at least for the PlayStation Showcase, was when they had the God of War Ragnarok trailer, and that seems like that was only a year ago. Yeah, apparently Nintendo seems to hit, for like the last 6 years or so, does a September Direct to kind of highlight what they're doing at the start of 2023. So maybe better game showcases are coming our way. Who knows?
Here is hoping, fingers crossed.
In the meantime, let's talk about the first of our 2 games this week, and it is Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. I don't know how we're going to have, space to fit in the title this week. It's going to be a very long title.
Oh, I have absolutely no idea.
Might have to abbreviate some things here. Marvel's Spider-Man was a game that we've talked about previously on this show, and we discussed it on episode 25. That was...
Oh, that was so long ago.
It was early July of 2019, kind of talking about it for the 1-year anniversary of that game being released, so...
I think it was also coinciding with Ultimate Alliance 3.
Okay.
Was the main reason why I put that. I think, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong. That was 3,000 years ago.
It sounds about right, but that makes sense. So we're finally talking about the next game in Insomniac's series, and it released on November 12th, 2020 for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in North America and Australia. The rest of the world would get it a week later on the 19th of November. A PC version was released just a couple weeks ago on August 12th, 2022. You may have remembered that next week I'm talking about Jaden Smith, and it was going to be for that episode that ended up being just the solo Salt and Sanctuary episode, and that would be why, but we bumped it a couple weeks, and so here it is. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales was developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. The PC version was handled by Nixxes Software, and that's a PlayStation sister studio that was brought into the fold in 2021 to handle ports of PlayStation games to PC. It's almost a little telling that Savage Entertainment was brought into PlayStation Studios similarly today, as of time of recording, when they're going to be focusing more on mobile games of PlayStation IP. So look at PlayStation kind of branching out. Okay. Miles Morales continues what worked so well from the original Marvel's Spider-Man. It's a third-person open-world action-adventure game with a primary focus on traversal and combat abilities. You freely move around New York City, you interact with characters, undertake missions, you unlock new gadgets and suits by progressing through either the main story or completing tasks. Now, outside the story, the player is able to complete side missions to unlock additional content and collectible items. Combat focuses on chaining attacks together and using the environment and webs to incapacitate numerous foes while avoiding damage. It's very Arkham-like combat, but you get some webs in there and you get your little spidey sense to dodge. A lot of similarities to Batman Arkham combat there, but the traversal is, the best it's ever been for a Spider-Man game. Just zip, swing all across the city. It's one of those games where the traversal is so fun that even though there are fast travel points, it's almost more fun to just go yourself and just swing throughout New York.
Yeah, I don't use fast travel in either of these games. Like, that's a good sign that you have A, made a good map, and B, made a really fun way to get around that map.
Absolutely. Now, in this game, Miles Morales plays very similarly to Peter Parker. You have some newer animations, of course, but Miles has some new powers, which include Venom Blast, which allows the player to incapacitate enemies with bioelectricity, as well as charge or drain electronics. He has Camouflage, which gives him temporary invisibility, and Mega Venom Blast, which is just a big, massive explosion of bioelectricity that damages all nearby enemies. The game also introduces new gadgets, such as remote mines, which can attach to enemies or electrical panels. There's also a device that summons holographic fighters to help in combat, and gravity wells that trap multiple enemies and make them easier to hit. The story of Spider-Man Miles Morales, a year after revealing his Spider-Man powers to Peter Parker and training as his protege, Miles Morales discovers his bioelectric abilities in a scuffle with Rhino, saving Peter's life and proving his capability. With this, Peter feels comfortable taking a break from protecting New York, leaving all of this in Miles' hands. Now the sole Spider-Man of New York, Miles must balance his new superhero responsibilities with supporting his mother Rio Morales in her campaign for city council, they're based out of Harlem now after moving from Brooklyn, and defending his new home from a violent war between the corrupt Roxxon Energy Corporation and a high-tech criminal army known as the Underground, all while his childhood friend Finn Mason has popped back up in his life. What is the Underground's motivation, particularly with their leader, the Tinkerer, and why is it aimed at Roxxon? What happens when Miles' uncle, Aaron Davis, discovers his secret identity? And can Miles become a Spider-Man that the people of Harlem can be proud of? Joe, here's where I'll ask you, what are our experiences with Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales?
It's the only game I've ever accidentally been given early. And by that, I mean I was given it like 2 days early because I don't remember what other game it was. But I went to pick up a game that came out a couple days before, and Best Buy, for some reason, gave me Miles Morales early. It was weird. I played it. I had a good time with it. I think there are a lot of good moments in it. And honestly, the question that it left me with more than anything was, how the hell are they going to make playing as Peter feel as cool as playing as Miles when Miles's extra abilities, like the Venom Shock stuff, are just so much more fun. That Venom tackle is probably one of the most satisfying things to pull off on an enemy ever. And I also just think it's got a lot of really cool set pieces. I think its final boss is just as good, if not better, than the original game's final boss, which is a high bar because I really like the final boss of the original game. I mean, there's boss fights with like the Prowler and stuff like that. It's just a very, very good game, and I'm glad that they gave Miles a spotlight before the sequel is probably, let's face it, gonna focus more on Peter than Miles, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with a sequel, and even hits, 2023, right? The way Insomniac turns out games, though, it wouldn't surprise me if they hit that kind of date, especially when they also have a Wolverine game in the works. That was also at last year's September 2021 PlayStation Showcase. So, big things to maybe follow up on with Insomniac for sure. I think Miles Morales was a really good pick to like have something ready for the PlayStation 5 launch and to have a kind of game in the middle. You're right, definitely to give Miles his own sort of place and chance to shine in a game. I feel like we'll talk about how it gets compared a lot with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, in that, well, this could have been a DLC expansion. You could have made this its own thing, but honestly, to make it a more, just a tighter campaign, give it some new things. But for some, they prefer this kind of experience more than the full big budget game. And it's interesting to compare the two. I played it. I had a good time with it right near the PlayStation 5 launch. I think it was right between this and Assassin's Creed Valhalla, kind of going back and forth between the two. But yeah, a shorter game. To be sure, it's not that long of an experience, especially when you compare it to Marvel Spider-Man. This is probably, 10 to 12 hours, I think?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And that's even if you do like all the side content. Like if you blitz through the main parts of the game, I don't know why you would, but it's an even shorter game on that front.
I remember I was going to do all the side content, and then one of them bugged out on me and I actually could not finish it. It was one of the sound ones where you gotta like track down the sounds, and I like activated it, but then at the same time I was getting a call from somebody in game, and that bugged both things out so that neither thing happened. But as far as the game was concerned, I'd already activated the thing to start the sound minigame, and it wouldn't reactivate, and so I just couldn't do it. And that kind of killed my want to like do the 100%. But other than that, like I'm pretty sure that's the only real complaint I have about the game.
That's frustrating. And that must have been an early thing. Like I think I got like all the trophies except for the ones that need the second playthrough. And so it's a pretty easy platinum if that's something you're interested in doing. So there isn't too much out there as far as the development of this game. But there are some things that are worth talking about. Like it was revealed at the June 2020 PlayStation 5 Future of Gaming event. This would be the event that would end with showing the PlayStation 5 console design. It was the second game shown at the event, following the announcement that Grand Theft Auto 5 would be coming to PlayStation 5. That was a neat reveal, kind of with like the shock going up the arm and then showing that it's Miles Morales. Really neat. And then a big pop off for it. Yeah, holiday 2020. It's coming in less than a half a year. So wild there. The game was initially discussed as an expansion and an enhancement to the previous game. However, Insomniac later called the project a standalone game, stating that it is, quote, the next adventure in the Marvel's Spider-Man universe. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy is a frequent comparison point in the sense that it is a smaller project in both terms of size and scope compared to its more mainline title. This game apparently features, quote, a new story with new set pieces, fresh villains, and unique quests. And that's fair. It's just also like a half to 2/3 of the size. It was one of the more appetizing launch titles for PlayStation 5, though. For that PlayStation 5 version, the game takes advantage of the console's increased processing power, dedicated ray tracing hardware, custom solid-state drive storage, the Tempest sound engine, and the DualSense controller to support features such as advanced haptic feedback, real-time ray tracing effects, 3D spatial audio, and there's also a performance mode for 4K 60 HDR gameplay, and also reduced loading time. So if you did the fast travel, loading the game fresh from menu is wild, and going between subway points for fast travel is insane.
Don't make the same mistake I did, kids, and play it on PS4.
Ooh.
Because most of the time it was fine. There is a sequence that takes place during a blizzard near the end of the game. And oh boy, the PS4 was struggling to do that one. Like, visibly struggling.
Well, I played it on PS5, and I feel like that was the that was the console it was meant to be played on. Similarly, it reminds me of, like, you go back and play Horizon Forbidden West on PlayStation 4. This year, playing God of War Ragnarok on PlayStation 4. Like, yeah, I get that if you don't have a PlayStation 5 yet, stock issues and price increases, well, not in the United States, but the global market. All that aside, if you don't have a PlayStation 5, good, experience these games for sure, but it's not the intended vision, I think, at this point. There is also the neat little bonus of not only including the suit from the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie that starred Miles Morales, but there is also an equipable item that turn Miles' animations in the game to 12 frames per second to match the film's very iconic and artistic look, while also adding some thwack kind of effect bubbles in there during combat.
It's really cool, and I never used it because it actively makes me sick watching it.
Oh yeah, it's super weird to like actually play it, but you watch some video of it, it's like, oh neat, that's a thing. But yeah, I didn't do it either. But it's nice to give players that option. Also, this game has like a stealthy "Oh hi Troy Baker" casting as Simon Krieger, one of the game's antagonists. It's just like, for all of Troy Baker's acting roles, that's a pretty underrated one. Like, he did a great job, I think, in this role. And like, it just stands out that like, suddenly Troy Baker in an Insomniac game. But it also just shows that this game and its place in time, and time is so strange, as the release of this Miles Morales game featured a dedication to the original actor for the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, who died 2 months before the game's release. And like, why does it feel like he's been gone much longer than September 2020?
Oh, because time's not real anymore.
Thanks, COVID. But the right move certainly to make that. But wow, that looking at that bit of research, that kind of just shocked me on how time's just clicking along. The game reviewed well, with a Metacritic average of 84 on PS4 and 85 on PS5. It received praise for its combat, narrative, content, and technical improvements for the PlayStation 5 version, though the criticisms included the game's brevity, especially if you were just mainlining the big story missions. But also, I think that's really subjective when we talk about a game's shortness overall, and just in general, its place as a stopgap with the reuse of assets in what could be considered a glorified expansion. yes, it's based off of a great foundation. Some people think it's a better paced experience, but let's be real, it's pretty clear what this is. Similar critiques also happened with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. But again, some people preferred that one to the main Uncharted 4. So there you go. As of July 18th, 2021, the game had sold over 6.5 million copies. Miles Morales was the 12th best-selling game of 2020 and the 6th best-selling game of 2021. There was an ultimate version of the Miles Morales game that was released for PlayStation 5, and if you bought it, it included the Spider-Man Remastered game, a next-gen console version of the original 2018 game. This one drew some controversy with fans because it changed the facial model for Peter Parker from John Bubniak to Ben Jordan in order to better match Yuri Lowenthal's facial capture. I still have to get used to that one, but honestly not as upset with it as a lot of people were.
He just looks so weird now, though. He just looks so weird now. You can't just do that to me.
I feel like it'll be implemented better, like from the get-go with Spider-Man 2, but we'll see. It was nominated 3 times at the Game Awards, including Best Performance for Najee Jeter as Miles Morales, but it didn't win anything. It was nominated 7 times at the BAFTAs, including Best Game, and it won for music. I remember mentioning that on the show. I mean, we didn't include this in our Best of 2020, even like on our honorable mentions list and all that, but I remember talking about the BAFTA Awards, and it's like, and Miles Morales won for music. Like, neat. Okay, I guess it's deserving, but maybe we missed the boat on that one.
I think, if I remember correctly, our consensus was, it's good music. It's just a little bit more low-key than the original, and it didn't really, I could not hum a single thing from that game like I can the original, which, I think fits a bit better with Miles, but it just, nothing that really grabbed us 100% as worth, really lifting up there.
Yeah, I agree with that, but obviously a soundtrack worth discussing. I mean, if it won the BAFTAs for music. It was also nominated 5 times at the DICE Awards, winning Outstanding Achievement in Character, beating the likes of Ellie and Abby from The Last of Us Part 2, Zagreus from Hades, and Eivor from Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Pretty stacked category, and I'm honestly surprised that Miles Morales won that category.
I could kind of see it. I am a little bit shocked that Zagreus didn't walk away from it, considering he was the big boy of that year. But, I could have seen any of these people taking it. But I think Miles was very deserving. I think his actor did a great job.
As we mentioned almost a year ago, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was confirmed to be in development, with Peter Parker and Miles Morales seemingly going up against Kraven the Hunter and Venom. And that would be continuing the teased twist on the Spider-Man lore from the original game, and this was even furthered in this game's post-credits scene. Who do we talk about for the soundtrack for Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales? John Paisano did the score and continued great work on it. So we got to talk about someone new, because we talked about John Paisano already on the Marvel Spider-Man episode. So let's talk about Jaden Smith. Jaden Christopher Sire Smith was born on July 8th, 1998 in Malibu, California. He is the son of Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. He's received various accolades in his young life already, including a YouTube Creator Award, an MTV Movie Award, a BET Award, and a Young Artist Award, among nominations for a Grammy Award, 2 NAACP Image Awards, and an Empire Award. His film debut, because he started in movies when he was 8 years old, was with his father, Will Smith, in the 2006 film The Pursuit of Happiness. And then he again appeared with his father in the 2013 film After Earth.
A true American classic.
It sure is. But then he also starred in the remake films The Day the Earth Stood Still in 2008 and The Karate Kid in 2010.
Which, hot take, and apparently I found out this is not a widely shared opinion. I actually really like The Karate Kid. I think that movie's really good. I think Jackie Chan, kicks ass in that movie. Apparently, a lot of people don't like it at all.
I thought I'd heard favorable things about it. That's really interesting. Well, it was from that movie that Jaden Smith began his musical career alongside Canadian singer Justin Bieber when he was featured on the 2010 single Never Say Never from The Karate Kid. The song reached the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was certified 5 times platinum in the United States. That's probably more because of the power of Justin Bieber, but still, the start of Jaden Smith and his career there. Jaden Smith's influences in music include Kid Cudi, Kanye West, Kurt Cobain, and Tycho. He also considers his father, Will Smith, as an inspiration, more for crossing over in entertainment mediums, more that, Will Smith started in music and then went to TV and movies, and for Jaden it was the reverse, but still inspiring there. Jaden Smith is a partner in the spring water company Just Water, and he started this when he was just 12 years old. Just Water is attempting to create a water filtration system that's cheap and can be used in poorer areas and nations, and they later want to help with water infrastructure and creating more environmentally friendly construction methods by producing its own drywall. Jaden Smith is also apparently considered a non-binary icon in that he was the first male model to model women's wear for Louis Vuitton, choosing to wear a skirt in 2016 as a way of bringing attention to and combating bullying. He noted how, 5 years from now, a kid will wear a skirt in school and it won't be seen as that odd. And, I think we've definitely come a long way, but still long ways to go in non-binary and transgender rights, of course.
Yeah. It goes without saying, honestly.
Jaden Smith is currently on tour with Justin Bieber for his Justice World Tour, and you can follow him on Twitter at Jaden, Jaden. He locked that one down pretty early on, he must have. Jaden Smith's music career involves 3 mixtapes, 3 EPs, and 3 studio albums. The first being Sire, S-Y-R-E, in 2017, based off of one of his middle names. Eris, in 2019, that would be Sire backwards. And then Cool Tape Volume 3 in 2020. His music in video games involves the song I'm Ready, in this game Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Watch Me in 2017's Need for Speed Payback. Also mentioned some of the movies that he's in earlier. The Pursuit of Happiness is one of the big ones. After Earth, The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Karate Kid. Those are some of the big ones. And then he's come back with an acting career more recently for Netflix, so he's making some more moves there. The historical development research for the Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales soundtrack, yes, does involve John Paisano returning to compose the score, since he did for the original game. But unlike the 2018 game's music, which was more orchestral-based, Miles Morales' soundtrack features orchestral themes mixed with hip-hop music. Also some electronic synths in there, which makes sense considering the antagonists of the game. It's hard to find sources with how Jaden Smith got involved in this game, especially since he went all out. He made a music video for the song he produced, and it's intercut with footage from the game, and it was released for promotion on Sony's channels and all this. But it also doesn't help with the searching that earlier this year, apparently rumors were circulating about him being cast as a live-action Miles Morales for the future of Sony's involvement in the MCU, with Will Smith telling Pop Time, quote, "My son is preparing himself physically and mentally to get a place as one of the characters who will make history for the first time in the saga of a movie that many already know and ask for." It makes you wonder, with connections with Sony already, does that give him a leg up?
Who knows? We don't even know if there's going to be another MCU Spider-Man film, to be perfectly honest. I don't think they've said anything yet.
I don't think so, but who knows? Maybe they'll try with Kraven the Hunter early next year with Aaron Taylor Johnson. Surely that can't go well, to try to paint a Spider-Man villain as an anti-hero and someone who loves animals?
He just loves animals. That's why he's a hunter. He just loves animals so much. Kraven the Hunter, known lover of animals.
good guy Kraven the Hunter. We'll paint him in a great light, just like DC did with Joker, right? Right. Let's talk about the music, though, for Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. And how does it sound similar but different to the 2018 Spider-Man game? Well, let's start with the first track here on the Critical 5 tracks. And this is Won't Give Up. Even though this is near the end of the soundtrack, this is the main menu theme of the game. And I feel like it's definitely one that when I heard, one was surprised at its placement on the soundtrack. It's like, oh yeah, this piano part at the beginning of the clip especially is like, oh, 100%. It's, the main menu screen where you're there and you're loading the game very quickly. But still, if you hang on and linger on, you're kind of getting the gamut here in this clip where like Miles is a more subdued personality that kind of, keeps to himself and is trying to kind of learn the ropes. You get the orchestra coming in for the heroic theme that's more catered to Miles as opposed to Peter's theme. And then it goes and drops those heavy hip hop beats and kind of creates the full sound. And it's like the full journey in a way in 30 seconds. Super neat. Love the heavy brass hits, the deep brass that comes in to support the hip hop beats coming in. I just think it's a great example of like, it kind of shows the flow of Miles and who he is as a character and what he brings differently to the table.
And if I'm not mistaken, the orchestra parts are music leitmotifs from the original soundtrack, I think. I'm pretty sure. The dun 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 dun. I'm pretty sure that's a part from, at least, I think that's the city swinging music of the first game. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. And it's like, I think it's maybe more of like the more Spider-Man theme in a way. But obviously Peter has his own take with the ba ba bum bum ba and da 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 da. Like that's more, I would assume, like the Peter Parker leitmotif. Miles definitely gets his own leitmotif later in this game, which I think we'll hear a little bit of here in just a bit. But yeah, I think it's kind of borrowing the similarities from that game. I think you're definitely right there. Number 2 on the Critical 5 gets into that city navigation where we start to hear more of Miles as Spider-Man. This is New York's only Spider-Man. So early on in the game, Peter Parker has seen Miles' new abilities and he can handle himself. So I'm going to take a break from this Spider-Man business. Go with Mary Jane, be her photographer. Just take a little vacation for myself. And so Miles has to become his own Spider-Man, New York's only Spider-Man. And so early on in the game, when you have the city exploration, you have the triumphant heroes fanfare. But also, again, mixing in the hip-hop beats and kind of blending the two. This is a really a good piece to kind of accentuate that, as early on, Miles is still learning the ropes, but enjoying the freedom and yet the responsibility that weighs on him. This dun, da, 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 dun, dun, da, da, da. I feel like that's like his more leitmotif in this game. Definitely echoed here and will continue throughout the game, of course, but we had the main city swinging theme for Peter Parker and the original Spider-Man. It's only fitting that including this one just makes sense as a theme that is very common to pop up during the open world, especially in the early parts of the game.
Honestly, I think this might be like the only one where I like this better than the original. The original has a different flavor to it, obviously, but I think this one fits a lot better with swinging around New York City specifically. I don't know, it feels more open world-ish, if that makes sense. I think it works a lot better for going through the city and all that, swinging through the buildings and stuff.
And I'm not sure how we forgot to mention it, but this takes place in the context of it's Christmas time in New York, so you get like a wintry feel of the city. So fortunately, it's a different sort of feel of the city. It's the same kind of city with the addition of Harlem, but you're also getting a different season. It kind of helps mix things up there. Fortunately, though, it's not like we're getting like sleigh bells thrown in there, so that's good. Number 3 on the Critical 5 involves some combat against the main antagonists of the game, and this is the Underground. Definitely a big piece to highlight here in some of the combat situations that Miles finds himself in with the Underground, these kind of metallic, purple, light enemies. They look futuristic, have these kind of stun batons and all that. They're going up against the Roxxon Energy Corporation, who has more of a red color motif going. But yes, the Tinkerer and the representation in this game. Many people think, the Tinkerer is not that big of a Spider-Man villain, but I feel like the take in this universe, really interesting with what is going on here, how it represents the Underground's war with Roxxon, and how is Miles looped in all of this. So yeah, when you're going through the hideouts with the Underground and kind of taking out some of their big baddies, it's one of the big, sort of side mission completion things to do in the game, but will also pop up when you're fighting the Underground in the city. Just a nice, big, bombastic battle theme. You get the big, heavy brass line there. That's a nice, sinister leitmotif for this group. And just nice to hear again with the percussion that comes in. Really makes a Miles battle theme his own.
A lot of it also kind of reminds me of the Shocker battle theme in the first game, which, as some people might remember, is one of my favorite songs in that game. Oddly enough, just because it's got some very similar vibes to it. But I especially like what I am assuming is the stealth section of the song, which is the one I heard the most often because this is like the only game, this and the original game are the only 2 games where it's like, stealth is fun in this one.
Oh, it's actually great. And then, some people argue the original game that the forced stealth parts with Miles and with Mary Jane aren't that great. But honestly, like, they are basic stealth that it's not that difficult and it doesn't last that long. So I'm not sure where that complaint comes from. But yeah, like when you're actually Spider-Man, stealth works super well.
I like the stealth when you're Spider-Man specifically. I think the others are whatever. But yeah, so that's the part I hear, and I do like the really, really deep bass synth of that part.
Yeah, because they're running on energy too, so I mean it makes sense for the synths to be going in there,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But this song, more than anything, reminds me of another bug that I hit while trying to 100% the game, which was during one of the Underground hideouts. Something happened that closed off an area and I didn't see the chest when I was going through it, and I went out and I didn't have a way to get back in, and the game never unmarked it.
Oh no.
And I had no way of getting that again, so that was actually another bug that stopped me from 100%ing the game. It's a good game, it's just I happen to have those 2 moments that were kind of frustrating.
Gotta be patched out by this point. That's annoying, though. I'm sorry.
Oh, for sure. It's been 2 years. They've probably fixed it by now. But yeah, that was a bummer at that point, at least.
Let's get to number 4 on the Critical 5. There is a track that's called Best Friends on this soundtrack, so it may make sense that there's also one called Worst Enemies. It's the big spoiler of the game, but honestly, it is very telegraphed, and it's not that surprising of a twist.
It is the easiest prediction humanly possible.
I honestly think it's like, this character, Finn Mason, is popping back up in Miles' life, and she used to be really good friends, but her brother died at the hands of the Roxxon Corporation. Oh, what? Finn's really talented as a scientist? No, she couldn't possibly be the Tinkerer. Look, it's not even that big of a spoiler, to be honest. Yeah, like you said, it's super easy to call. If anything, it just changes the dynamic of the story and just makes this final boss encounter, where this track Worst Enemies plays, just a really tragic piece. There's, as I mentioned, the Best Friends track, and that's more of like a theme that plays that represents Miles and Finn's friendship when things are good and when they're still open and cordial with each other, but it's tough when they have secret identities that get discovered by each other. And so just a really sad final boss fight, and I feel like that's why it's good that I think the hip-hop beats weren't included on this one. Really plays up the melodrama between the two, and I feel like that's where the orchestra is just at its best here, as John Paisano excellently does. You mentioned that you liked this final boss encounter as much, if not more, than the final showdown in Marvel's Spider-Man. And yeah, there's more personal stakes on a different level between these two. And it's sad that like they can't just take the time to stop and communicate properly, honestly.
There are a lot of things about Finn's character that frustrate me. I think she's a very good character, but also I think her reaction to finding out that Miles is Spider-Man is stupid and dumb. Because her entire thing is, you were Spider-Man and you didn't tell me? To which the response should be, you were the Tinkerer and you didn't tell me?
Yep.
How about screw you?
And just anything could have been fixed with just them talking as the friends that, granted, they've been away from each other for a little while, but if they're friends, talk it out.
Yeah, it's kind of a frustrating sticky point. But this fight is great. This song is very good. I agree that not putting the hip-hop beats in this one is probably a very good idea. And also it being a lot more low-key than the music that it plays during the fight with Dr. Octopus, to be perfectly honest. Like, it's not as bombastic, mainly because it's less... as far as they're aware, there's slightly lower stakes as far as Finn is aware.
Right.
But I don't know, it's a smaller, more personal thing than that fight, like you said. And yeah, it's just good. It fits very well for the sort of scale of this fight.
100%. More intimate, more personal. Doesn't need the big bombast, but yet hits those emotional notes just right. And then we get to the final piece on the Critical 5 here. This is Jaden's track. Jaden Smith's inclusion here, as we mentioned before, is I'm Ready.
I got something to prove, I showed it the world, can't hold it no longer. They think I'm way too young to stand up for the ones I love, but let me tell you something. I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready to take on the world, I'm ready. You can't stop me now.
So Jaden Smith doesn't go by Jaden Smith for his musical career, at least at this point in his career. So he is credited as Jaden. as his Twitter handle would suggest. So, I'm Ready by Jaden plays in this game during the credits sequence. It's the piece that starts the credits, and written from Miles's perspective, makes sense. But yeah, heavily promoted for this game, especially when, the tagline is be greater, be yourself, and really about Miles's journey, but there's more of an auto-tuned hip-hop piece. Very different than I think a lot of what we've played on this show before, but I feel like, especially when we're talking about Jaden Smith and his involvement with this game, it's one that had to be brought up on the Critical 5 here, and it bumps. I like it.
Yeah, it's a good song. I didn't know it was Jaden Smith until like 2 days ago.
Right?
I straight up didn't know. Because I remember this song. It's a very good credit song. And I think it fits, especially with the sequence that plays during this part of the credits. And then, there's the literal, I timed it, 45 minutes of credits after that.
Wow.
Which I am terrified of skipping, because what if there's an after credits scene?
Right?
Like, I need to break that habit in video games, because I feel like most devs are very good about if you skip the credits, you're not going to skip the scene, especially if the credits are going to be 45 minutes long. Right. And detail everybody on Earth who looked at the game at any point.
Which is good that they're including everybody and hopefully not leaving anybody off. But video game credits are getting heinously long, and you got to think if they'll include it, they just fast forward it to that point. So, yeah, good to include this one though. Definitely one that caught my ears. Oh yeah, this is that song for sure. Well, if you have to be greater, be yourself. Let's get to the cutting room floor with a couple tracks here, just to flesh and round things out. This track here is Be Yourself. It is more navigation music. Cool little key change there in the clip. I like that one. It definitely evokes a couple things for me, because this is, I think it's a navigation theme later in the game when you're more confident about yourself, and now the threat is real between Roxanne and the underground, and stakes are getting higher. And yet, the weather is intensifying because of that. You mentioned the blizzard that ramped up in New York City. I feel like this plays during that. But also I feel like John Paisano's channeling a little bit of the Sam Raimi movies and Danny Elfman's score a little bit here. It sounds a little bit different with just a darker kind of tone to it. And I feel like there's some possible comparison points to make there. But yeah, another cool navigation theme that kind of picks up on some of the darker stakes later in the game.
I would not be surprised if this does play during the Blizzard section at the very least. It does fit that level of tension. That's the word you use. It fits that level of tension, and for that whole section, I think it works really well.
And the other one that I wanted to highlight on the cutting room floor here, this is Where We Come From.
This is where we come from, yeah, we made it. Now the whole team celebrating. We like, Don't mistake the new me for the old me. They can't stop me now, I'm with the home team.
Right off the bat in the game, telling you that this is Miles's game. It's going to be different. And as you're introduced to the character of Miles Morales, stepping off the subway into Harlem, and now he's listening to this song, which is performed by Lecrae, Lecrae. But yeah, this is your introduction to Miles as a character, kind of what he listens to, what he's inspired by, how he interacts with the people in his town, and how he's kind of seen there before he goes home to his mom, and they have some good family time together. But yeah, this is one where hearing this on the soundtrack, one of the other vocal themes here, obviously, and just being like, oh yeah, I definitely remember this, like right at the beginning, Miles being Miles.
Yeah, it's a good opening segment. It really shows what kind of person Miles Morales is in this universe, because he's not exactly like he is in Spider-Verse, or like I assume he is in the comics. I don't know. I don't read comics. There's too many of them, and I don't read them. Yeah, I think it's very good for sort of establishing his character at the very start.
So what will I never forget about Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales? Certainly I will associate it with playing this game at the launch of the PlayStation 5 and having it integrate all those new features with the haptic feedback and the controller and the fast load times and all that. Just a nice, fluid experience. I'm sorry yours on PlayStation 4 is rougher.
Only in that one section. It ran overall fine. It probably not as well as it would run on a PS5, but it ran overall fine for the rest of the game. It's just, that Blizzard section could not do it.
Might be one to replay eventually, though, as we, eventually build up to Spider-Man 2 when it's released there. Because I never went back and played Spider-Man Remastered. So that may be one to, just go through both in the lead up to that. So I feel like there are certainly some things to remember. Yeah, the very easy plot twist, Troy Baker's performance as Simon Krieger. Like, going back and seeing some of those scenes, it's like, Troy, you just gave more to this scene than you really needed to. Like, it's such a campy, cheesy, stereotypical villain, but Troy Baker delivers. So
he plays a surprisingly good, definitely not Elon Musk.
Exactly. That's a very fair comparison point. So just a fun game overall, but you definitely see the points where it's a smaller game, but some people may prefer that.
I do. I like shorter games nowadays. I have things to do. I have other games to play. I don't think that the original Spider-Man overstays its welcome in any way, but I don't know. I like this sort of tighter, shorter experience that gives more time to sort of tell a bit more of a personal story, because you don't really have time to set up city-ending stakes or anything like that. Unfortunately, a lot of my memories, now that I think about it, are those two bugs, but those were side things, so whatever, who cares? But yeah, overall, I just look forward to playing as Miles more, and I am curious how they're going to make me want to play as Peter when Miles is an option.
Yeah. Is Peter going to get a new ability? Maybe more of a wingsuit? And he gets to glide more? I have no idea. Who knows? So, before we talk about our next game, we like to highlight a fan cover, a fan remix, whether it's on YouTube, OC Remix, wherever, as a transition piece. Didn't really find anything. I'm surprised and I'm not surprised that Jaden's I'm Ready did not get covered, but this I think gives us a good opportunity to then highlight one of the other main vocal themes in the game. It's another piece by Lecrae. And this plays when Miles is more gaining the suit that is his own and really earning that and kind of just taking charge of his powers and his abilities and his role as Spider-Man. So this is called This Is My Time. And please enjoy, and we will be right back.
I took the message and sent it, felt like I was born for this minute. This is my time. I'm seizing the moment, cause I gotta go for the time's gone. Ain't scared of the dark, cause I'm bringing the light when the night's long. I shine on, see it coming, I don't need a sign. This the moment, I'ma make it mine. This is my time.
What is that? Could this be the work of an enemy stand? Is that why we're talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle? No. And if you don't know anything about JoJo, what I just said doesn't make sense to you in any way, shape, or form, but that's okay. Let's talk about JJBA All-Star Battle. It was released on August 29th, 2013 in Japan for PlayStation 3. PAL regions got it on April 25th, 2014, and then North America on April 29th, 2014. A remaster releases in 2 days, September 2nd, for PC, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S, which is actually the reason why we are talking about it today, because, JoJo. This is basically the only excuse I'm going to have to talk about a JoJo game, so I'm taking it. It was developed by CyberConnect 2 and was published by Bandai Namco. It is a 3D fighting game featuring characters from Hirohiko Araki's influential manga JOJO'S Bizarre Adventure, which is, in fact, one of the most influential mangas to ever exist. It's up there with stuff like Fist of the North Star, even though it was itself inspired by Fist of the North Star. Which is really funny. The meme of, is that a JoJo reference, exists for a reason. If you've ever, seen somebody in an anime or anything do a bunch of punches while shouting, ora, 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 that's a JoJo reference. Persona is probably, in general, a JoJo reference. In fact, one of them is straight up blatantly inspired by a part in JoJo, and we'll get to that in a bit.
There are weird poses that are JoJo references.
Exactly. Yeah, they're everywhere. Once you've seen any JoJo, you start to see them everywhere. They're everywhere. This game, in general, is mostly the same as, say, your average Tekken or your Soul Calibur. It's a 3D fighting game. With the addition of a dodge button, there's also a style button. Now, what the hell is a style button? Well, there are 6 main categories of style, and we'll get into exactly what these are in a minute, but they are Ripple, Vampirism, Mode, Stand, Mounted, and Bow Armed Phenomenon. That last one actually only belongs to one character, who is a bonus guest character from Araki's pre-JoJo manga, Bow, which I did not know was in this game. That's kind of cool. It's like when Arale shows up in Dragon Ball games. Each style has its own set of skills. Stuff like Ripple users can use Hamon to power up their attacks. Vampirism users can drain power from their opponent, as well as slowly regain health unless certain conditions are met. Stand users can summon their stand to assist them in combat. And mounted users can ride a horse. That's literally the description on Wikipedia, is they can get on their horse. I will say that I don't have a great picture of what gameplay is like for this game, because Wikipedia's description of the gameplay is a mess. It is so hard to parse. Harder than most fighting games, because fighting games in general, you can't really read how a fighting game plays. You kind of need to play it yourself. And I have admittedly never played this game. It came out before I got into JoJo, and also I just wasn't the market for a JoJo. I haven't been the market for a JoJo fighting game since this came out, which this was the last JoJo fighting game to come out. So, one day Arxis will make the JoJo fighting game we actually want, but until then, there are 41 playable characters in All-Star Battle. There are 4 from Part 1, 6 from Part 2, 11 from Part 3, 10 from Part 4, 9 from Part 5, 5 from Part 6, 4 from Part 7, 1 from Part 8, and of course, as I mentioned, the guest character from Bao. Those were a lot of numbers, I know. Don't worry. It will all make sense in a second. As far as I can tell, there's no actual, plot in this game. It's just, what if all the characters fought each other?
Which, honestly, what more do you need?
Yeah, that's fine for a fighting game. I don't need anything else. I don't need this wide plot, which I'm pretty sure a game came out either before or right after this game that is kind of a fighting game, but it was a Wii exclusive or something called Eyes of Heaven. And it does have a story that does all this time shenanigans stuff. I don't know. Now, you probably have questions, considering everything I just said. Being, what exactly is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and why is it so bizarre? What do the part numbers mean? What is Ripple? What the hell is a stand? What's happening? We will cover all that, but first I want to ask, Peter, what are your experiences with the Bizarre Adventure of Mr. JoJo?
I feel like I only know some of the memes. And I say, some of the memes not all of the memes, obviously. Familiar with what a stand is? You're right. Persona is a good parallel there. My favorite JoJo meme, and I sent it to you the other day because it was timely and it was based on what I was editing for the show at the time. There's a video out there. It's not easy to find, but it's out there somewhere of the sequence in SpongeBob SquarePants where they're the marching band and they play Sweet Victory at the end of that episode. And it's a great, great sequence from that show. But someone edited it to be reimagined that they were performing Sonochi no Sarame, the original opening, the OP1 from the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime. And just an amazing edit. That anime is known for having banger OPs for sure. I know
some of the best OPs ever made in anime history.
Yeah, I know you like the second one in particular.
That is correct. Bloody Stream. It's one of my favorites. Not my favorite, but you actually helped me with a project where I put together a cover of that song with Matt doing the vocals.
Yes.
At one point.
Yes, that's where I feel like I pick up things here and there. Do I know anything about the characters, this game, how the world all ties together? No, not necessarily. But it's also just things like Kira Buckland and her goal of, I think she even said, 8 years ago today, as of time of recording, was when they revealed Jolene Cujo as a character for part 6, I want to say.
Correct.
And she was talking about how, that would be my goal one day to voice this character. And look at that, dreams come true. Like, she's the English dub voice and they're releasing more episodes sometime this coming month.
If anybody else had been cast in that part, people like JoJo fans would have rioted. I'm saying that for sure.
So I just pick up things like that here and there on the internet. But have I seen an episode of JoJo? No. Have I read anything from JoJo? No. But being around the internet, you get bits and pieces, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is completely unavoidable, especially now that the current running anime started and it became a lot more mainstream. JoJo was popular in Japan and then a niche fandom here. And then that anime really started to pick up steam, and I feel like it's become a lot more well known since then specifically. I have watched most of the anime. I haven't seen any of the most recent season because it is in what we anime fans have taken to referring to as Netflix jail, where Netflix releases 13 episodes every 6 months, and it's probably going to be a 40-something episode season, which honestly kind of killed a lot of people's interest in watching it as it came out, because Netflix refuses to do same-day releases when it airs in Japan, even though they do it in Japan. But whatever. I haven't seen any of that. I'm looking forward to watching it when it's done, but we'll see when that happens. So the last thing I watched was Golden Wind, which was very good. I watched that as it was coming out because Crunchyroll was putting that out. What a good time. I never thought I'd say that about Crunchyroll. But yeah, JoJo is cool. I would not say that I'm a major JoJo fan, but I like it a lot. It's really, really weird, but it's also one of the most satisfying action shows to watch, simply because of the nature of how its battles work, especially when stands are introduced, because they're not there from the start. No, they're not. Let's talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in general and discuss what the hell that means. So, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure began publication in Shonen Jump in 1987, and it is still going. Continues to this day. It is split into different parts, is what they're referred to. Each part kind of features a new cast of characters. Sometimes there are some recurring characters that show up, like 1 or 2. But for the most part, every single part features a brand new cast, in a brand new location, in a brand new time period, etc., etc. So part 1, known as Phantom Blood, ran from 1987 to 1988. It stars Jonathan Joestar, whose adopted brother Dio Brando is transformed into an evil vampire, and Jonathan has to learn the Hamon ripple breathing / martial arts technique in order to stop him. This is the part where it's very clear that Araki just wanted to make his own Fist of the North Star. Like 100%. Part 2, Battle Tendency, ran from 1988 to 1989. It stars Joseph Joestar, the best Joestar. It's basically Richter Belmont, like 100%. It's the same person. He's Jonathan's grandson, and he also has to learn Hamon in order to stop 3 ancient vampires known as the Pillar Men from obtaining a powerful stone known as the Red Asia Stone. Part 3, Stardust Crusaders, ran from 1989 to 1992. It stars Jotaro Kujo, Joseph's grandson, and his group of companions, which includes an older Joseph Joestar, who is still great, just in a brand new, different way, because he's still a dumbass.
Is he the one that has, again, memes, but English curses in the Japanese?
Hell yeah, he is.
Oh my god!
Hell yeah, he is. That's Joseph Joestar, baby.
Okay.
He's the best character in Stardust Crusaders. And they are traveling from Japan to Egypt to confront and defeat a revived Dio, but he is now known as Dio.
Oh, yeah, Joe, I think your recorder cut out there. Dio in all caps there. And you were going to say this is the part that introduced the concept of stands. So what are those?
They are described as a manifestation of fighting spirit, and they give people various bizarre powers. Some of them are normal, such as Jotaro's. I almost called him Kiryu. Oh my god. Kiryu is basically Jotaro Kujo without a stand. That's weird to think about. Jotaro's stand, Star Platinum, can just has like amazing reflexes and can punch really hard. And then you get ones that are like, if I touch you, now you are super magnetized and everything metal on Earth is going to chase you until they kill you. Or I release a virus that murders everybody within a radius. They're weird. All of them are super weird. That's not even getting into the weirdest ones. Anyways, Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable, ran from 1992 to 1995. Stars Josuke Higashikata, Joseph's illegitimate son, as he and his group of friends, including Jotaro, work to solve a mystery in the small town of Morio, and the numerous stand users that have been drawn to it. Fun fact, this is the part I was talking about. Persona 4 is very heavily and obviously inspired by JoJo Part 4. Like 100%. And then when they made the anime of Part 4, it's very clear that they were like sort of giving a shout out to that, because then it went the other way where a lot of the aesthetic and stuff was very reminiscent of Persona 4 Golden. So I think it was like a goes both ways sort of thing in a weird way. But Persona 4 is just Part 4 of JoJo.
Okay.
Part 5, Golden Wind, ran from 1995 to 1999. It stars Giorno Giovanna, the secret child of Dio, as he tries to climb the ranks of the Italian mafia, which is, of course, full of stand users, because why would it not be? Part 6, Stone Ocean, ran from 2000 to 2003, stars Jolene Kujo, Jotaro's daughter, as she, her father, and their comrades work to clear Jolene's name after she's been framed for murder. Part 7, Steel Ball Run, ran from 2004 to 2011. It goes to an alternate universe. Unfortunately, I'm bummed by that, though I'm told Steel Ball Run is the best JoJo part in general. It goes to an alternate universe to follow a cross-country horse race in the United States, in which the characters Shiro Zappelli and Johnny Joestar are participants. Part 8, JoJolion, which ran from 2011 to 2021, and only ended last year, takes place in the version of Morio from the Steel Ball Run universe after the Tohoku earthquake of 2011. And Part 9 is apparently set to start soon. So Araki's still going, even though by all accounts it kind of looks like Araki wants to write something else, or maybe retire forever. Who knows? One of the biggest gimmicks in JoJo, as some people might know, is the fact that a ton of stuff is just named after bands or songs that Araki likes. Like to the point where this makes bringing JoJo to America a localization and copyright trademark hell. One of the villains in Part 2 is straight up named AC/DC. The main antagonist of Part 4's stand is called Killer Queen. There's stuff like a character named REO Speedwagon. That's his name. There's a stand called Metallica. There's a stand called Sex Pistols, Bites the Dust. None of these are allowed to be called those in English. And one of the funniest things, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but one of the funniest things is going to look at how they localize the names, because they have to work really hard to make sure it still has the same general meaning, and you know what they were going for, but like, they can't just call a stand Red Hot Chili Peppers. That doesn't work. They will get sued. So some of them are more blatant than others, especially after you get into Part 4, where it's just the most, they don't even try to hide it anymore at all. It's great. Araki really, really likes Western music, and he's going to make sure that you know it. I think there is exactly one stand named after a Japanese song that I can think of, and it's actually named after a song by my favorite Japanese band, being Perfume, and it's the stand Chocolate Disco. Like, that's the only one I can think of. Stardust Crusaders is, or was, I don't know if this is the case anymore, it was the most well-known part for a really long time, because it got an anime adaptation in 1993. I think it was just the second half, though, which is the super weird part, which is when they get to Egypt, and then the entire second half of Stardust Crusaders is just finding Dio in Egypt. There was a Phantom Blood movie that released in 2007, and was apparently so bad that it has never been released outside of theaters. And is, I believe, overall considered lost media. I did not know about that until like a week ago, and I heard about it for the first time literally 2 days before starting this research. So, sometimes it works out. It's gained a lot of a Western following, though, recently, because the new recent anime adaptation began releasing in 2012. Season 1 adapts Phantom Blood of Battle Tendency. Season 2 does Stardust Crusaders in 2 parts. Season 3, Diamond is Unbreakable. Season 4, Golden Wind. Season 5, Stone Ocean, is currently ongoing and again stuck in Netflix jail. Now, in terms of information on the development of the game, the reason we talked a bunch about what JoJo is in general is because there's not actually a lot of information on the development of this game. I did find some interesting stuff, such as this game actually uses a special shader engine called JoJo Shading Requiem, which is the most JoJo name you could give to anything. And its main purpose is to give the game a very stylized manga aesthetic. Because if you're going to make a JoJo game, it better damn well look like JoJo. JoJo has a very distinct look, and you need to make sure that you nail it. The collector's edition of this game apparently came with a gold plate etching of Giorno and his stand Gold Experience, as well as a statue of Jotaro and his stand Star Platinum, and also, I guess, a CD of the soundtrack. But, gold etching of a character and statue of the most famous JoJo character there is. This is, and I could not believe this, one of 27 games to ever get a perfect 40 out of 40 from Famitsu.
That's insane. So this and Death Stranding, they're on the same level.
Apparently, except when it came to the West, reviews were a lot less glowing. They mainly hovered around a 7 from most publications. It has a 71% on Metacritic right now.
Wow.
So Famitsu loved it. The rest of the industry, not so much. In fact, JoJo fans don't even think this is the best JoJo fighting game. There was one that Capcom made a really long time ago that people really want them to re-release, to the point where when they announced this game and they were like, a classic JoJo fighting game is coming back, people were hoping it was that one and then got actively disappointed when it was this one. But this is the one that got a perfect score from Famitsu, one of 27 games ever. Like I said, it is getting remastered for all platforms, comes out in 2 days. The composer for this game, or at least one of them, it's very hard to tell because as far as I could tell, this game did not get like notes, detailed notes on its soundtrack release, which it seems like the only release it got was the one that came with the collector's edition. But from what I can tell, the music in this game was done by Chikayo Fukuda. Not a lot of information on her. I do know that she started at Sega, but was really only there for a year and now appears to be the in-house composer for CyberConnect, where she frequently collaborates with Bandai Namco on various games based on famous anime, and she has touched some real damn famous anime stuff. But in terms of her discography at Sega, she did Ristar, Tails Sky Patrol, which I believe was a Game Gear game, Papanga Pango, Tail Concerto, and Silent Bomber, and then she left. At CyberConnect, she has done 8 games in the Dot Hack series. She's done 16 Naruto games. I'm pretty sure she's done like all of the brawlers that they put out. A game called Solatorobo Red the Hunter, which I'm not familiar with. She was one of the composers on Asura's Wrath for Capcom. She did this, JoJo All-Star Battle, as well as Eyes of Heaven. She was one of the composers on Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. And her most recent game was a game called Fuga Melodies of Steel, which again, I am not super familiar with. So, you may be thinking, hey, the anime is like a big deal, and the anime has some really good music to it too. You've probably heard Giorno's theme. It became a meme when that season was running. The dun 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 dun.
Oh, yes, 100%. Oh my gosh.
Yes, that is Giorno Giovanna's theme. Unfortunately, this game predates everything but Season 1, so it does not feature the music or voice actors that are now associated with many of these characters, because they hadn't been animated yet. In fact, it was up in the air about whether or not they would be animated. When they finished Part 5, everybody was like, alright, when's Part 6? And the answer was basically, man, I don't know if they're gonna let us. And that's basically how it's been for every season since now. It was considered a miracle that we got Part 4. So yeah, none of these are going to be like the iconic music from the anime. I am assuming there will probably be some anime songs added in this remaster. They would be stupid to not add Giorno's theme, I feel like.
I was going to say, like, this is the right time if you're doing a remaster. Come on.
I am assuming the voice actors are also going to change. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea how they're handling that, which is funny since the game comes out in like 2 days. I'm not going to buy it at launch, but I'll probably take a look at it at some point. But with that being said, let's jump into the 5 critical tracks. Now, you might notice, if you know anything about JoJo, you'll notice that this is a really weird collection of character themes, because, again, I have not played this game. So I went with, what are the songs that jump out to me as being the best songs? And I didn't really worry about whose theme they were, except for one of them, which had to be on here. But we will get to that in a minute, because the first critical track is critical track number 1. This is Lisa Lisa. This is, in case you didn't guess, the theme of Lisa Lisa, She's a character from Part 2. She is actually the woman that is in charge of training Joseph Joestar and his partner Caesar Zappelli in the ways of Hamon. She's super cool. She might be the coolest character in Part 2, which is saying something, because Part 2 is very, very good. And this theme is just really rad. Like, the synth that goes on in the background is just really awesome and gives this song a really good pace. You've got the chords, the strums there, which are really, really cool. I don't know, this song is just really, really good in general.
Also, like, some bells to it. It's got a really good funk to it.
It does manage to have a pretty good sort of feminine tone to it, while also, like, showing off, like, oh no, but this person's a badass. Like, they will kick your ass. Fits for Lisa 100%. She is super cool. But you know who's not super cool, but we're going to talk about anyway. Critical track number 2. This song is called Megyan. Do I know why it's called this? No, I have absolutely no idea. This is the theme of Whole Horse. He is a character from Part 3. Whole Horse is, as I put in the outline here, a clown man, cowboy man who works for Dio. Whole Horse is one of the most popular characters in Part 3 because he is a gigantic dumbass. And he's just kind of funny to watch try and do this crap. His stand is the Emperor. Should note, most Part 3 stands are actually named after tarot arcana. Most of the band names you'll find being characters that have their stands. For instance, there are 2 characters named Oingo and Boingo, which must have been super fun localizing. I don't remember what they went with, but it sure wasn't Oingo and Boingo.
Shout outs to Danny Elfman.
But he can control the trajectory of his bullets. The Emperor is just a gun. It is literally just a gun. Which is super funny because canonically, non-stand users can't see stands. So they can't see his gun. But he can control the trajectory of his bullets. And I think that this song really, really, really drives home that he is just a clown who thinks he's really cool. Whole Horse is Andy from Cowboy Bebop, but possibly stupider.
Okay, I get you. And it makes sense now that you get, like, also a bunch of Western-inspired instruments here, like,
yes,
sounding cowboy-like, and that checks out. I like the inclusion there. That must have been a bit of a reach, I think, for the composition here, but, you know, it, again, totally makes sense. Also makes sense why Zawarudo is a thing if Tarot Arcana is a big part of Season 3, or Part 3.
Correct. And that's why Joe DeRosa's Star Platinum, Joseph's stand is Hermit Purple, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Silver Chariot, I believe, is one of the characters' names. They're all Tarot Arcana. Now, this is the theme that has to be here simply because of what character it is. Because this character, I think, is probably one of the most iconic villains in all of anime and manga. He's up there. He's up there with, like, Frieza and stuff. This is Dio's world. This is, of course, the theme of Dio, the main antagonist of parts 1 and 3, but this is specifically for his part 3 version, so the all-caps version. Dio is a very, very charismatic man who also happens to be an immortal vampire. And he is, again, one of the most iconic villains in manga history. I remembered when I first saw his stand, which is The World, or Zaworldo, as many people will know it, which can be used to freeze time. When I first saw that in the anime, I had this memory unlock of the first time I heard about The World, but had forgotten what anime was being talked about. And that was on Show Me Your News.
You betcha.
When you guys learned about what Luigi's Final Smash was, but didn't really know what it was because it was only in videos that had been taken of demos and stuff. And Panda compared it to Zaworldo. And for years, I knew about that, but didn't realize what manga he was talking about or what anime he was talking about. And then the Stardust Crusaders anime happened. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Okay. And it fits. It is 100% accurate to what it looked like at the time. The world can freeze time, basically. He can freeze time for a few seconds at a time. It's really funny in the manga and in the anime, where you can, for a lot of it, it's, what is Dio's stand? It's so mysterious and nobody will tell us, but it's super obvious that it's just, Araki doesn't know yet. he hasn't figured out what he's going to make Dio's stand yet.
Well, it better be really cool then.
He just has characters be like, I can't tell you what Dio's stand is. I'd rather die first. And it's like, no, Araki just doesn't. He makes this up as he goes along. It's blatantly obvious. That man is an enigma.
It's really funny. Like I could have told you that it was from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure all the way back in 2008, whatever it was that we did that. Yeah, so I feel like I've known about Zawarudo for a long, long time. But yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so Dio is an immortal vampire. Is that why his theme just sounds like directly out of Castlevania?
Oh boy, does it. It just sounds like a Castlevania level.
That's exactly what it is. You could drop it right in a modern Castlevania and you're right at home. It's kind of amazing, actually.
I mean, to be fair, it is highly possible that, I think it's more likely that Simon Belmont's design and stuff is based on, Conan the Barbarian, but when you get to other Belmonts, like I said, Richter Belmont is basically just Joseph Joestar.
That's a really good point.
I think Castlevania has taken some inspiration from JoJo itself. But yeah, this is you've got the bells. It has this really, really sinister castle feeling to it, which is weird because Dio does not have a castle. He lives in Cairo. There's no castles there. But yeah, it fits for the villain because he is the villain of JoJo. To the point where, even parts where he does not appear, what's happening is something that can possibly be traced back to him. He left ripples that affected the entire world. It's really cool, and I think this theme really does a great job at sort of bringing across how evil he is. He's the most evil. Frieza could see some of the things this man does and go man, you might be going a little too far. I'm not into that. Critical track number 4. The last two are actually for the JoJo's of their respective arcs. I had considered just making all 5 JoJo and then one of them Dio, but there's too many JoJo's, first of all. And second of all, that's no fun. Some of the JoJo's don't actually have the best themes, but my favorite one is critical track number 4. This is Golden Spirit. Now, considering it's called Golden Spirit, you might be thinking, oh, it's Giorno's theme because he's in the part called Golden Wind. No, this is Josuke Higashikata's theme, the main protagonist of Part 4. Josuke has a stand called Crazy Diamond, which is named after a Pink Floyd song, which can repair or reform basically anything using its rapid punches. He's the one with the big pompadour, if you've seen him.
Mm-hmm.
He gets very angry if you make fun of his pompadour, because pompadours are very cool, and how dare you. He's just a huge weirdo. But, like, he's got this sort of... The JoJo's sort of switch off between, like, cold-blooded and hot-blooded, as has been described to me. So, like, Jonathan Joestar is very smart, and he goes into things, like, thinking very hard about what he's about to do, and he's got this sort of soft-spoken thing to him. And then Joseph Joestar is a massive dumbass who just charges into danger, even though he's super smart. He's also really stupid. And then Jotaro is very stoic and really, really, like, scheming. And then you have Josuke, who is in fact a massive idiot. And he's also very loud, and he's a delinquent and everything. So I think this music really kind of fits that tone of, like, this sort of delinquent kid who has magical powers. He's the delinquent with the heart of gold, but he's also, like, very energetic and outspoken and kind of dick and stupid. And I think this theme, with its sort of electric organ and everything, really, really, really fits his personality super well.
Yeah, fun little call and response with that organ to the guitars, and then turns right into a really neat key change. I just love that part, just listening to it and wanting to give it some attention. But yeah, I feel like the back and forth, the call and response, like, definitely represents that kind of personality, I think.
Yeah. And for another of I think the thing that mainly, from what I can tell, the thing that mainly breaks that cycle is that both Giorno and Jolene are very cold-blooded, which I think is reflected very well in Critical Track. Number 5, I Want to See the Starlight. This is the theme of Jolene Cujo. She's the main protagonist of Part 6. She uses the stand Stone Free, which is named after a Jimi Hendrix song, which has what I saw described as string-based powers. I cannot give you any more details. I have not watched any of Stone Ocean yet. I've not seen her stand in practice, and that's, for a lot of stands, the only way you're ever going to understand what they do.
Interesting, then, that in the music, I feel like that's represented at the end of the clip. You hear, like, this really interestingly distorted string instrument. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a guitar that has a lot of processing on it. So if that's part of it, that's really neat. Very Hendrix-like in a way. Wow, good job. Good job, composing team.
Jolene, as far as I'm aware, is another rough and tumble sort of delinquent character who is just... I don't want to say no nonsense, because again, I can't say that for sure, but that's always the vibe I've gotten from just seeing, like, images of her and stuff. And I think this song really, really drives that sort of tone home of just like, yeah, you came to the wrong neighborhood. It's time to die. Like, it sounds tough and cool, and like it's not going to take any nonsense. And I really, really like this song a lot.
Definitely a really neat one. Just like it's not a fun, kind of bouncy, hot-headed one, but yeah, calm, cool, collected, and that string at the end, the string guitar instrument is pretty neat.
4 tracks on the cutting room floor. Again, one of these is kind of a weird choice. And part of me thinks I've only put it on the cutting room floor so I could talk about the character. Because the character's great. But also I think the song is just generally really good. First track on the cutting room floor is The Phantasmagorical Fool of the Sand.
That's a word I don't think we'll ever hear again on this show.
Oh, probably not, but I hope we do because it's fun to say. Phantasmagorical. Ah, damn, the better joke would have been to be like, yeah, I don't think we'll ever say sand again. This is the theme of Iggy. He's a character from Part 3. Iggy is a Boston Terrier. He's named after Iggy Pop.
Oh.
And he has the stand, The Fool, which can manipulate and form itself out of sand. Iggy is a huge jerk and hates everybody around him. And I love him. He's great. He's a very late addition to the Part 3 cast, but just this dog that actually at one point almost beats the crap out of Jotaro, if I remember correctly. Iggy's cool, and this song kind of fits his personality of he also thinks he is the coolest thing to ever exist. And all of this, like, I'm only coming along on this adventure because I'm a dog and I can't stop you. This is stupid. I don't want to do it. He likes gum, so they bribe him with gum. I think this song really fits that, sort of. He's just kind of a jerk, and he doesn't take no nonsense, and he's gonna take you down if you even look at him wrong. I really like Iggy, and I really like this song. It's very rock heavy. It's great.
For sure. It's an interesting shift from like the like the guitars and all that to this low synth. It's quite a hard transition, but it's an interesting song to listen to.
And following that, there is one villain in JoJo that comes kind of close to Dio. Kind of. He's not nearly as iconic, but he is maybe the best villain, I think, in the series. And his theme is Cutting Room Floor track number 2. Yoshikage Kira Wants a Quiet Life. This is, as one might guess, the theme of the character Yoshikage Kira, who is the main antagonist of Part 4. He is a serial killer who has access to the stand Killer Queen, which has the power to detonate anything it touches like a bomb. That's people, objects, animals, anything. If you touch it, he can detonate you and you die. And also has like 5 substand abilities. Like one called Sheer Heart Attack, which I assume is another Queen song, I believe. Because Killer Queen is, I believe, named after a Queen song?
It is a Queen song, yep.
Okay, I'm not that far out of touch. Good. I believe all of his substands are named after Queen songs. I don't remember what the other ones are. I know Sheer Heart Attack because it's a big part of it, but yeah. And this theme, I think, kind of really works to, it's not like, you'd think Wants a Quiet Life would be a little more subdued than this. His whole character is basically, I want to just live under the radar, and I want nobody to remember me, and I want nobody to talk to me, and I'm just gonna kill people. And that's all I want in my life. But this theme more tries to tap into the sort of intensity of him, because he is maybe one of the most intense villains in the series. Like Dio, His whole thing is, I'm the best. I'm going to make sure the world knows I'm the best. I have all the confidence in the world. And Kira is just, I'm just going to kill you and then I'm going to move on with my life. I don't care. And I think this song kind of really reflects that while also making sure you know that he's a threat. And he has the power to back that up. And I think the song does a great job of sort of bringing that across.
There's a lot going on in this piece. There's many layers at work, and maybe that's like all the sub-stand abilities going at it. But yeah, for wanting a quiet life, for not wanting to be, paid attention to, making a spectacle and a scene with this playing along with it. But yeah, it definitely has a villainous touch to it, like out of control, and maybe that reflects a mental state to just kill without a second thought. I don't know. Just a lot here.
Mm-hmm. So what will I never forget about this game? I never played it. What will I never forget about JoJo? This show's weird. It's a weird show. It's absolutely 100% worth a watch. Granted, where to start, I could not tell you. It's a huge debate in the JoJo fandom of like, no, you should start with part 1. And some people say you should start with part 3. You shouldn't skip any JoJo parts. Those people are idiots. Start wherever you want. Literally, for most of them, you don't need to know anything about the last part. And some people, like, Phantom Blood is very slow, and it might turn some people off. The first half of Stardust Crusaders sucks. I'll say that out loud. It's not very good. I think part 4 is the best part. It's my favorite part. Like, all you need to know is there are people. They have stands. There was a guy named Dio once. I've now given you all of the information you need to know about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Start wherever the hell you want. But I do definitely recommend watching the anime. Or you can be like my roommate Ben, who just in secret read the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, didn't tell anybody until he finished it. So he did what I did with One Piece. But,
I was going to say, it sounds pretty similar to what you just did.
But even harder because JoJo's way longer. So that's why I did that with One Piece. I needed to reassert my dominance. But yeah, JoJo is fun. And I hope this game is good, even though a lot of people are like, yeah, it's fine, I guess. Whatever. I got a perfect score from Famitsu. How bad could it be? Like Brawl.
Joe, were you expecting something else? But it was me, Dio.
It was me. That's another one of those big. You got that. You got the cherry gif from part 3.
Oh,
which is
yeah,
the weirdest
yep.
one.
Uh-huh.
That one's weird, even in the context of the episode in which it happens.
Muda, 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 muda. I mean, it's everything. Everything's JoJo.
Everything is JoJo. Literally everything is JoJo. If you think it might be JoJo, you're correct.
Well, something that has in common with JoJo is Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales, apostrophes, colons, hyphens, has it all with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, All-Star Battle. Games that I didn't think were going to be paired together, but you know what? I'm glad it worked out this way instead of pairing Miles Morales with Salt and Sanctuary.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell we would have done in that case.
That might have been a weird one. But for now, great soundtracks to cover, fun games to talk about. Getting to talk about JoJo, I learned some things. I like that. I appreciate that. And hopefully you did too. So thanks so much for listening this week on Original Soundchat. That'll do it for us. You can find me on Twitter at PeteSpeakeasy. Joe's over at StringPixel. The video version of the show is on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel, but it's that MP3 podcast version that you want. That's hosted by Anonymous Dinosaur at anondino.squarespace.com. It's where Joe's other podcast, Smasherpiece, is hosted. And you can find Smasherpieces and Original Soundchat wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, even on Spotify, where we have a podcast feed with episodes. But we also have a playlist on Spotify where if we talk about a video game track on this show and it's on Spotify, gets added to this monster playlist. Joe, what's being added this week?
So Miles Morales is on Spotify, but surprising nobody, JoJo All-Star Battle is not. So Miles will be on there. No JoJo.
We'll see if that changes with the remake coming out. Who knows? I say remake, but it's more of a remaster. They got to make it a remake. Come on, like add those things. Add the music. Add the voice acting. Come on.
Put Fighting Gold in the goddamn game, damn it. That song rules.
When you're done listening there, you can find the show on social media at Soundchat OST. Leave some feedback for us. How are we doing with these episodes? Also give us some suggestions for games to cover on the show. Got a few of those rounding out the year here, but always happy to take those and implement them when we can. Joe, who are we talking about next week?
Next week, I'm going to be the most obnoxious man on the face of the planet, and I will be talking about Yusuke Tsutsumi.
I will be making an interesting connection, I think, to another game, but talking about Martin Schalifour. Should be an interesting week next week. You don't want to miss it. All right, Joe, let's play us out.
Could you believe that there are no fan remixes of this game's soundtrack? I know, it shocked me too. So I decided to go grab another song from the soundtrack. And the one that stood out the most, because this was pointed out to me, though I honestly didn't need it pointed out to me, I'd just forgotten about it. The song is the disturbing AC/DC. It is the theme of AC/DC, one of the Pillar Men from Part 2. There's a part of this song that is literally just Back in Black. Unapologetically, to the point where I feel like they should have been sued. It's just Back in Black. And it's the most blatant reference, I think, to anything that anybody is named after. So I guess please enjoy that. And please enjoy that.
It never occurred to me until you mentioned it at the beginning of your part. I'll put it that way. All right. Thank you so much for listening this week on Original Sound Chat. We'll see you next time. Take care.